Y'all thought I was down for the count, huh? Yeah, I know. Y'all said, oh, he done fell asleep, fell way off last night. He ain't coming back on tonight. He ain't came back yet. He's surely done and out like last night. He ain't came back on yet. If he come back, he's just going to say shalom, shalom, and pass back out. Nah, I'm just talking to myself. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm just being funny. Shalom, shalom, Yashar Ch. Shalom, shalom, Mashpaka. Shalom, shalom. Hope everybody's having a great second day of the week as we enter into the third. I'm going to go ahead and do some reading tonight as well. Continuing part 2, Abraham. Yum9, Abraham, part 2. Reading the whole Caphar in the 50th year of Yubal, 2022 through 2023. A Natsarym audio version of the N.A.Y.Al, that is, the Natsarym assembly of YAHUSHA, because we have to remember and never lose sight that we are the nail that put YAHUSHA to death. Let that be a sobering, humbling thought, that we might never exalt ourselves more than we should, because we are worthy of condemnation, not exaltation. But praise Yah through Yahuwah, through YAHUSHA, that He had compassion on us through His blood to redeem us from the pit, that now our two works may account for something. By His compassion, He's choosing to smile upon them and receive them as anything of two, only by mercy and compassion, because He don't need that. That's like a child offering you a stick, a little something for an offering, like for a gift, and you're like, okay, it came from your heart, so I'll receive it, but just continue to behave, because obedience is better than sacrifice, right? He done paid us so we can spend time with Him forever. He just wants us to behave, because obedience is tubular, is better than sacrifice. Hallelujah. So I'm just looking for something I can use as a stand just for my phone. Let's see. Got some stuff in here I can use. Spots. Bear with me, Yashar. Oi. I'm just doing what I do best. Winging it. Alright. Let's get this going. Yeah. Thank you, Yahuwah, for an opportunity to live another day. For those of you who are wondering if you should get involved in ministry and do something like this, let me be the example that probably can't be as bad as me. You see what I'm saying? That's inspiration. Can't get no worse than what I'm doing right now. It can only get better. So that's for you. That's encouragement. Hold on one second. Alright, let's do it. So if you remember, my books, or my mobile speaker was stolen, so hopefully I can retrieve another one. If anybody would want to help with that, make sure I don't get stolen again or whatever. But it's off too. Maybe it's just better this way. Yours will be done. Alright, so Yum9, Abraham part 2, reading the whole Caphar in the 50th year of Yubal, to 2022 to 2023. A Natsarym audio version of the N.A.Y.Al, the Natsarym assembly of YAHUSHA. We had just finished reading through Yubalym, chapter 10, 11, and 12, picking up the rest of the itinerary with Yashar chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and Barashyt chapter 11, Psalms 5, Proverbs chapter 2, Matthew chapter 6, and 1 Peter 5. Let's see how far we can get tonight. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. Open up in prayer. Yahuwah, King of the universe, in YAHUSHA Mashiach, Creator Shamayim and Eretz, Kadash be your name. We praise you and thank you, Yahuwah, Elohim Most High, King of the universe, in YAHUSHA Mashiach, Creator Shamayim and Eretz, Kadash be your name. Let your kingdom come, your will be done, perfectly on earth as it is done in the Shamayim. And give us this day our daily bread, your will and the perfect will and word for our Chaim. And forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. And don't let us be led into temptation, trial, or destruction, but deliver us from the wicked schemes of the enemy. For yours, Yahuwah, is the eternal kingdom, power, and the kabod esteem. And King YAHUSHA Mashiach, our Radon, our Elohim, our King of Kings, and our Prince of Peace, and our Kuhan Gadol, and our Aish, forever and ever. Aman and Aman and Aman. Hallelujah, YAHUSHA. Pray that you provide ears to hear and eyes to see, a heart to discern, and a mind to understand. In the power and authority of King YAHUSHA. Amen. Hallelujah. So we are the Natsarim. We are not messy annex. We're not messy at all. We keep the true name of Yahuwah YAHUSHA. We don't compromise the name for G-O-D, L-O-R-D, or J-C. And if you adhere to that, we'll long suffer with you for a while. But after a while, if you know that's just where you're at, we will continue. We will just have to part ways respectfully, and find those who will cut of our cloth of the Natsarim, where He is divine and we are the branches that produce the fruit of the Ruach and the fruit of righteousness, to keep His commandments. Do not utter the names of other mighty ones. Let it not be heard from your mouth. Words like G-O-D, J-C, L-O-R-D, even other words like B-L-E-S-S, means to sprinkle the blood of pagan sacrifices. We are not sprinkled with the blood of pagan sacrifices. We're not B-L-E-S-S or B-S. We're Baruch. We are sprinkled by the blood of YAHUSHA Mashiach, and we're favored. We've been redeemed. We've been shown compassion, and we're favored unto YAHUSHA Mashiach. We don't use B-L-E-S-S. We use Baruch, or favored. And we don't use F-A-I-T-H. We're not saved by F-A-I-T-H. We're saved by belief, by Amunah, which is belief, trust, and obedience. It's all together in that understanding. We're not saved by G-R-A-C-E. We're saved by compassion unto favor. We don't see the G-L-O-R-Y of Yahuwah, where we see His esteem, His kabod, His honor, His majesty, His magnificence. There's many words to substitute instead of G-L-O-R-Y, which was to the sun deities of their aura of the sun rays. That's what where that word comes from. It's just like halo, where you get H-O-L-Y. He is not the sun rays of that esteem. He is Kadash. He is separated because He's too Kadash. He's separated unto His own Kadashah, and words of that nature. You can look this up through HallelujahScriptures.com if you wonder where you can find a scripture that takes all these pagan words out, so you don't utter the names of pagan deities. In adherence with Exodus 23:13. Do not utter the names of other mighty ones. Don't let it be heard out your lips. Order yourself a free copy of the Hallelujah Scriptures. And you can get yourself a copy of that, HallelujahScriptures.com. They take out those pagan words. I believe even BYNV has done a pretty good job, if I remember correctly, taking some of those things out. So that's pretty much it. We're a little power, but we have not denied the name, meaning we do not even compromise it, to have fellowship with those who do, because those are spirits and they invoke. So we just stick to Yahuwah YAHUSHA and the Kadash words, and obeying all the commandments in the Ruach of YAHUSHA, the fruit of the Ruach, showing the love, the brotherly love of Philadelphia, and that is what we consider to be the Natsarim. None of us own anything, but everything is freely shared amongst each other. Hallelujah, YAHUSHA. And we are little power, but we have not denied the name. Hallelujah, YAHUSHA. That being said, let's begin. Yashar. That's where I need to be at. Chapter 7. Yashar Ch.7. And these are the names of the Banim of Noach, Japheth, Ham, and Sham. And the children were born to them after the flood, for they had taken wives before the flood. These are the Banim of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yawan, Tubal, Mashach, and Tiras, 7 Banim. And the Banim of Gomer were Ashkenaz, as in Ashkenazi, Repath, and Tugarma. And the Banim of Magog were Alihanaf and Lubal. And the children of Madai were Ahun, Zilu, Hatsuni, and Lut. And the Banim of Yawan, which are the Greeks, were Elisha, Tarshish, which is Spanish, Spain, Shittim, and Dudanim. And the Banim of Tubal were Arifi, Kasad, and Taari. And the Banim of Mashach were Dadun, Hazrun, and Shabashni. And Tarshish, actually I'm not sure if that's Spain, so I have to go back on that. And the Banim of Tiras were Banib, Gara, Lupiriun, and Gilak. These are the Banim of Japheth, according to their clans. And their numbers in those days were about 460 men. And these are the Banim of Ham, Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, Canaan, 4 Banim. And the Banim of Cush were Saba, Hawilah, Sabta, Raama, and Sabtaka. And the Banim of Raama were Shaba and Dadan. And the Banim of Mitzrayim were Ludim, Anamim, and Patrus, Kaslut, and Kaftor. And the Banim of Put were Gibal, Hadan, Bana, and Adan. And the Banim of Canaan were Sidon, Hat, Amuri, Girgashi, Hiwi, Arki, Sini, Argudi, Zimudi, and Hamuthi. These are the Banim of Ham, according to their clans, and their numbers in those days were about 730 men. And these are the Banim of Sham, Elam, Ashur, Arpakshad, Ludin, and Aram, 5 Banim. And the Banim of Elam were Shushan, Muhal, and Harmun. And the Banim of Ashar were Midus and Mukil. And the Banim of Arpakshad were Shala, Anar, and Ashkul. And the Banim of Ludim were Pathur and Bizayun. And the Banim of Aram were Uts, Hul, Getar, and Mash. These are the Banim of Sham, according to their clans, and their numbers in those days were about 300 men. These were the generations of Sham. Sham brought forth Arpakshad, and Arpakshad brought forth Shalah, and Shalah brought forth Abar, and Abar brought forth 2 children. The name of one was Palag, for in his days the Banim of men were divided, and in the latter days the earth was divided. And the name of the second was Yuktan, meaning that in his day the lives of the Banim of men were diminished and lessened. These are the Banim of Yuktan, Almudad, Shalap, Hatsaramawat, Yara, Haduram, Uzai, Dikla, Ubal, Abimaal, Shaba, Ufri, Hawilah, and Yubab. All these are the Banim of Yuktan. And Palag his brother brought forth Yan, and Yan brought forth Sarug, and Sarug brought forth Nahur, and Nahur brought forth Tara. And Tara was 38 years old, and he brought forth Haran, and Nahur. And Cush, Ban of Ham, Ban of Noach, took a wife in those days in his old age, and she bore him a Ban. and they called his name Nimrod, saying at that time that the banim of men again began to rebel and transgress against Elohim. And the children grew up, and he and his father loved him exceedingly, for he was the bond of his old age. And the garments of skin which Elohim had made for Adam and his wife when they went out of the garden were given to Cush. For after the death of Adam and his wife, the garments were given to Hanuk and a son of Yarad. And when Hanuk was taken up to Elohim, he gave them to Matushalach, his bond. And at the death of Matushalach, Nuach took them and brought them into the ark. And they were with him until he went out of the ark. And at their going out, Ham stole those garments from Nuach, his father, and he took them and hid them from his brothers. And when Ham brought forth his firstborn bond, Cush, he gave him the garments in secret, and they were with Cush many days. And Cush also concealed them from the banim and brothers. And when Cush had brought forth Nimrod, he gave him those garments through his love for him. Nimrod grew up, and when he was 20 years old, he put on those garments. And Nimrod became strong when he put on the garments. And Elohim gave him might and strength, and he was a mighty hunter on the earth. He was a mighty hunter in the field, and he hunted the animals, and he built altars, and he offered the animals upon them before Yahuwah. And Nimrod strengthened himself, and he rose up from among his brothers, and he fought the battles of his brothers against all their enemies round about. And Yahuwah delivered all the enemies of his brothers into his hands. And Elohim prospered him from that time to time in his battles, and he reigned on the earth. Therefore it became common in these days, when a man sent out those that he had trained up for battle, he would say to them, like Elohim did to Nimrod, who was a mighty hunter in the earth, and who succeeded in the battles that prevailed against his brothers, that he delivered them from the hands of their enemies, so may Elohim strengthen us and deliver us this day. And when Nimrod was 40 years old, at that time there was a battle between his brothers and the children of Japheth, so that they were in the power of their enemies. And Nimrod went forth at that time, and he assembled all the banim of Cush and their clans, about 460 men. And he also hired about 80 men from some of his banim and acquaintances, and he gave them their wages. And he went with them to battle. And when he was on the way, Nimrod strengthened the hearts of the people that went with him. And he said to them, do not fear, neither be alarmed, for all our enemies will be delivered into our hands, and you may do with them as you please. And all the men that went were about 500, and they fought against their enemies, and they destroyed them and subdued them. And Nimrod placed standing officers over them in their respective places. And he took some of their children as security, and they were all servants of Nimrod, and took his brothers. And Nimrod and all the people that were with him turned homeward. And when Nimrod had joyfully returned for battle, after having conquered his enemies, all his brothers, together with those who knew him before assembled to make him sovereign over them. And they placed the royal crown upon his head, and he appointed over his subjects and people princes, judges, and rulers, as is the custom among sovereigns. And he placed Terah, bond of Nahor, the prince of his army, and he honored him and elevated him above all his princes. And while he was reigning according to his heart's desire, after having conquered all his enemies around, he advised with his counselors to build a city for his palace, and they did so. And they found a large valley opposite to the east, and they built him a large and extensive city. And Nimrod called the name of the city that he built Shinar. For Yahuwah had fiercely shaken his enemies and destroyed them. And Nimrod dwelt in Shinar, and he reigned safely, and he fought with his enemies, and he subdued them, and he prospered in all his battles, and his reign became very great. And all nations and tongues heard of his fame, and they gathered themselves to him, and they bowed down to the earth, and they brought him offerings, and he became their master and sovereign, and they all dwelt with him in the city of Shinar. And Nimrod reigned in the earth over the Banim of Noach, and they were all under his power and counsel. And all the earth was one tongue and words of union. But Nimrod did not go in the ways of Yahuwah, and he was more wicked than all the men that were before him, from the days of the flood until those days. And he made mighty ones of wood and stone, and he bowed down to them, and he rebelled against Yahuwah, and taught all his subjects and the people of the earth his wicked ways. And Mardon, his bond, was more wicked than his father. And every one of them that heard of his acts, the acts of Mardon, bond of Nimrod, would say concerning him, from the wicked goes forth the wicked. Therefore it became a proverb in the whole earth, saying, from the wicked goes forth wickedness. And it was common in the words of men from that time to this. And Terah, bond of Nahor, prince of Nimrod's army, was in those days very great in the sight of the sovereign and his subjects. And the sovereign and the princess loved him, and they raised him very high. And Terah took a wife, and her name was Amethlo, and the daughter of Cornabo. And the wife of Terah conceived and bore him a bond in those days. Terah was 70 years old when he brought him forth. And Terah called the name of his bond that was born to him Abram, because the sovereign had raised him in those days, and honored him above all his princes that were with him. Chapter 8. And it came to be in the night that Abram was born, that all the servants of Terah and all the wise men of Nimrod and his astrologers came and ate and drank in the house of Terah, and they rejoiced with him on that night. And when all the wise men and astrologers went out from the house of Terah, they lifted up their eyes toward the Shamayim that night, and to look at the stars. And they looked, and see, one very large star came from the east and ran in the Shamayim, and it swallowed up the four stars from the four sides of the Shamayim. And all the wise men of the sovereigns of his astrologers were astonished at the sight. And the wise men understood this matter, and they knew its importance. And they said to each other, this only foretells the child that has been born to Terah this night will grow up and be fruitful and multiply and possess all the earth, he and his children forever. And he and his seed will slay great sovereigns and inherit their lands. And the wise men and the astrologers went home that night, and in the morning all these wise men and astrologers rose early and assembled in an appointed house. And they spoke and said to each other, see, the sight that we saw last night is hidden from the sovereign. It has not been made known to him. And should this matter get known to the sovereign in the latter days, he will say to us, why have you concealed this matter from me? And then we shall all suffer death. Therefore, now, let us go and tell the sovereign the sight which we saw, and the interpretation of it, and we shall then remain clear. And they did so, and they all went to the sovereign and bowed down to him to the ground. And they said, may the sovereign live, may the sovereign live. We heard that a bond was born to Terah, bond of Nahor, the prince of your army. And last night we came to his house, and we ate and drank and rejoiced with him that night. And when your servants went out from the house of Terah, to go to our respective homes, to abide there for the night, we lifted up our eyes to the Shamayim, and we saw a great star coming from the east, and the same star ran with great speed, and swallowed up 4 great stars from the 4 sides of the Shamayim. And your servants were astonished at this sight which we saw, and were greatly afraid. And we made our judgment upon the sight, and knew by our wisdom the proper interpretation of it, that this matter applies to the child that is born to Terah, who will grow up and multiply greatly, and become powerful, and kill all the sovereigns of the earth, and inherit their lands, he and his banim forever, he and his seed forever. And now, our master and sovereign, see, we have truly made known to you what we have seen concerning this child. If it seems to the sovereign to give his father value for this child, we will slay him before he shall grow up and increase in the land, and his evil increase against us, that we and our children perish through his evil. And the sovereign heard their words, and they seemed tube in his sight. And he sent and called for Terah, and Terah came before the sovereign. And the sovereign said to Terah, I have been told that a bond was born to you last night, and after this manner he was observed in the Shamayim at his birth. And now, therefore, give me the child, that we may slay him before his evil rises up against us, and I will give you for his value your house full of silver and gold. And Terah answered the sovereign and said to him, My master and sovereign, I have heard your words, and your servant shall do all that his sovereign desires. But my master and sovereign, I will tell you what befell me last night, that I may see what advice the sovereign will give his servant. And then I will answer the sovereign on what he has just spoken. And the sovereign said, Speak. And Terah said to the sovereign, Ayun ban of Murad came to me last night, saying, Give to me the great and tube-looking horse that the sovereign gave you, and I will give you silver and gold, and straw and food for its value. And I said to him, Wait till I see the sovereign concerning your words, and see whatever the sovereign says, that I will do. And now my master and sovereign, see, I have made this matter known to you, and the advice which my sovereign will give unto his servant, that will I follow. And the sovereign heard the words of Terah, and his wrath was kindled, and he considered him in the light of a fool. And the sovereign answered Terah, and he said to him, Are you so foolish, ignorant, or lacking in understanding to do this matter, to give your good-looking horse for silver and gold, or even for straw and food? Are you so short of silver and gold that you should do this matter, because you cannot obtain straw and food to feed your horse? And what is silver and gold to you, or straw and food, that you should give away that fine horse which I gave you? Look, which there is none to be, that I gave you, like which there is none to be had on the whole earth. And the sovereign left off speaking. And Terah answered the sovereign, saying, Like this has the sovereign spoken to his servant. I beg you, my master and sovereign, what is this which you said to me, saying, Give your bond, that we may slay him, and I will give you silver and gold for his value? What shall I do with silver and gold after the death of my bond? Who shall inherit me? Only then at my death the silver and gold will return to my sovereign who gave it. And when the sovereign heard the words of Terah, and the parable which he brought concerning the sovereign, it grieved him greatly, and he was troubled at this word, and his wrath burned within him. And Terah saw that the wrath of the sovereign was kindled against him, and he answered the sovereign, saying, All that I have is in the sovereign's power. Whatever the sovereign desires to do to his servant, that let him do. Even my bond, he is in the sovereign's power, without value in exchange, he and his 2 brothers that are older than he. And the sovereign said to Terah, No, but I will purchase your younger bond for a price. And Terah answered the sovereign, saying, I beg you, my master and sovereign, to let your servant speak a word before you, and let the sovereign hear the word of his servant. And Terah said, Let my sovereign give me 3 days' time till I consider this matter within myself, and consult with my clan concerning the words of my sovereign. And he pressed the sovereign greatly to agree to this. And the sovereign listened to Terah, and he did so, and he gave him 3 days' time. And Terah went out from the sovereign's presence, and he came home to his clan, and spoke to them all the words of the sovereign. And the people were greatly afraid. And it came to be in the 3rd day that the sovereign sent to Terah, saying, Send me your bond for a price, as I spoke to you. And should you not do this, I will send and slay all of you, all that you have in your house, so that you shall not even have a dog remaining. And Terah hastened as the matter was urgent from the sovereign. And he took a child from one of his servants, which his female servant had borne to him that day. And Terah brought the child to the sovereign, and received value for him. And Yahuwah was with Terah in this matter, and Nimrod might not cause Abram's death. And the sovereign took the child from Terah, and with all his might dashed his head to the ground, for he thought it had been Abram, and that this was concealed from him from that day. And it came to be forgotten by the sovereign, as it was the matter of providence not to allow Abram's death. And Terah took Abram his bond secretly, together with his mother and nurse, and he concealed them in a cave, and he brought them their provisions monthly. And Yahuwah was with Abram in this cave, and he grew up, and Abram was in the cave 10 years. And the sovereign and his princes, diviners and wise men, thought that the sovereign had killed Abram. Man, what is that scripture that we have in our 66 book canon? Yahuwah says, I have given nations for your chai. I have given other people for our chai, for our ransom. That's talking about other people had to suffer in our expense, for us to be saved. Chapter 9. And Haran, ban of Terah, Abram's oldest brother, took a wife in those days. Haran was 39 years old when he took her, and the wife of Haran conceived and bore a ban, and he called his name Lut. Haran ban of Terah, Abram's oldest brother, took a wife. Haran was 39 years old when he took her, and the wife of Haran conceived and bore a ban, and he called his name Lut. And she conceived again and bore a daughter, and she called her name Milcah. And she again conceived and bore a daughter, and she called her name Sarai. Haran was 42 years old when he brought forth Sarai, which was in the 10th year of the life of Abram. And in those days Abram and his mother and nurse went out from the cave, as the sovereign and his subjects had forgotten the matter of Abram. And when Abram came out from the cave, he went to Nuach and his ban Sham, and he remained with them to learn the instruction of Yahuwah and his ways. And no man knew where Abram was. And Abram served Nuach and Sham, his ban, for a long time. And Abram was in Nuach's house 39 years. And Abram knew Yahuwah from 3 years old. And he went in the ways of Yahuwah until the day of his death, as Nuach and his ban Sham had taught him. And all the banim of the earth in those days greatly transgressed against Yahuwah, and they rebelled against him, and they served other mighty ones, and they forgot Yahuwah, who had created them in the earth, and the inhabitants of the earth at that time made for themselves every man his mighty ones of wood and stone, which could neither speak, hear, nor deliver. And the banim of men served them, and they became their mighty ones. And the sovereign and all his servants, and Tzara with all his household, were then the first of those who served mighty ones of wood and stone. And Tzara had 12 mighty ones of large size, made of wood and stone, after the 12 months of the year. And he served each one monthly, and every month Tzara would bring his grain offering and drink offering to his mighty ones. Thus Tzara did all the days. And all that generation were wicked in the sight of Yahuwah. And they thus made every man his Elohim. Notice Tzara, his own father, Abraham's father, was the pioneer of making idols. Ain't that cool how Yahuwah does the complete opposite? You know, out of the worst wicked family, the worst thing can choose something to become, you know, right, like pure and righteous, and bear fruit. And all that generation were wicked in the sight of Yahuwah, and they thus made every man his Elohim. But they forsook Yahuwah, who had created them. And there was not a man found in those days in the whole earth who knew Yahuwah, for they served each man his own mighty one, except Noah and his household, and all those who were under his counsel knew Yahuwah in those days. And Abram, born of Tzara, was becoming great in those days in the house of Noah, and no man knew it. And Yahuwah was with him. And Yahuwah gave Abram an understanding heart, and he knew all the works of that generation were worthless, and that all their mighty ones were worthless, and were of no use. And Abram saw the sun shining upon the earth, and Abram said to himself, Indeed now this sun that shines upon the earth is the mighty one, and I will serve him. And Abram served the sun in that day, and he prayed to it. And when evening came, the sun went down as usual. And Abram said within himself, Indeed, this cannot be Elohim. And Abram still continued to speak within himself, Who is he who made the Shamayim and the earth, who created upon the earth? Where is he? And night darkened over him, and he lifted up his eyes toward the west, north, south, and east. And he saw that the sun had vanished from the earth, and the day became dark. And Abram saw the stars and moon before him. And he said, Indeed, this is the mighty one who created the whole earth, as well as man. And see, these his servants are mighty ones around him. And Abram served the moon and prayed to it all that night. And in the morning, when it was light, and the sun stood upon the earth as usual, Abram saw all the matters that Yahuwah Elohim had made on the earth. And Abram said to himself, Indeed, these are not mighty ones that made the earth and all mankind, but these are the servants of Elohim. And Abram remained in the house of Noah, and there knew Yahuwah and his ways, and he served Yahuwah all the days of his chai. And all that generation forgot Yahuwah, and served other mighty ones of wood and stone, and rebelled all their days. And the sovereign Nimrod reigned safely, and all the earth was under his control. And all the earth was of one tongue and words of union. And all the princes of Nimrod and his great men took counsel together, Put, Mitzrayim, Cush, and Canaan, with their clans. And they said to each other, Come, let us build ourselves a city, and in it a strong tower, and its top reaching the Shamayim, and we will make ourselves renowned, so that we may reign over the earth, over the whole world, in order that the evil of our enemies may cease from us, that we may reign mightily over them, and that we may not become scattered over the earth because of their wars. And they all went before the sovereign, and they told the sovereign these words, and the sovereign agreed with them in this matter, and he did so. And all the clans assembled, consisting of about 600,000 men, and they went to seek a spacious piece of ground to build the city and the tower, and they sought in the whole earth, and they found none, like one valley at the east of the land of Shinar, about 2 days' walk. And they journeyed there, and they dwelt there, and they began to make bricks and burn fires to build the city and the tower that they had planned to complete. And the building of the tower was a transgression to them and a sin, and they began to build it. And while they were building against Yahuwah Elohim of the Shamayim, they devised in their hearts to fight against him and to go up into the Shamayim. And all these people and all the clans divided themselves in 3 parts. The first said, "We will go up into the Shamayim and fight against him." The second said, "We will go up into the Shamayim and place our own mighty ones there and serve them." And the third part said, "We will go up to the Shamayim and smite him with bows and spears." And Elohim knew all their works and all their evil thoughts. And he saw that the city of the tower which they were building, and when they were building, they built themselves a great city and a very high and strong tower. And because of its height, the mortar and bricks did not reach the builders in their ascent to it, until those who went up had completed a full year. And after that they reached the builders and gave them the mortar and the bricks. Thus was it done daily. And see, these went up and others came down the whole day. And if a brick should fall from their hands and get broken, they would all weep over it. And if a man fell and died, none of them would look at him. And Yahuwah knew their thoughts. And it came to be, when they were building, they shot the arrow toward the Shamayim, and all the arrows fell upon them filled with blood. And when they saw them, they said to each other, "Indeed, we have slain all those that are in the Shamayim." For this was from Yahuwah, in order to cause them to stray, and in order to destroy them from off the face of the earth. And they built the tower and the city, and they did this matter daily until many days and years were passed. And Elohim said to the 70 Malachim who stood foremost before him, to those who were near to him, saying, "Come, let us go down and confuse their tongues, that one man shall not understand the language of his neighbor." And they did so to them. And from that day following, they forgot each man his neighbor's tongue, and they could not understand to speak in one tongue. And when the builders took from the hands of his neighbor lime or stone, which he did not order, the builder would cast it away and throw it on his neighbor, that he would die. And they did so many days, and they killed many of them in this way. And Yahuwah smote the 3 divisions that were there, and he punished them according to their works and designs. Those who said, "We will go up to the Shamayim and serve our mighty ones," became like apes and elephants. And those who said, "We will smite the Shamayim with arrows," Yahuwah killed them, one man through the hand of his neighbor. And the 3rd division of those who said, "We will go up to the Shamayim and fight against him," Yahuwah scattered them throughout the earth. And those who were left among them, when they knew and understood the evil which was coming upon them, they forsook the building, and they also became scattered upon the face of the whole earth. And they ceased building the city and the tower. Therefore he called that place Babal, for there Yahuwah confused the language of the whole earth. See, it was in the east of the land of Shinar. And as for the tower which the banim of men built, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up 1/3 part of it, and a fire also came down from the Shamayim and burnt another third, and the other third is left to this day, and it is of that part which was raised, and its circumference is 3 days' walk. And many of the banim of men died in the tower, a people without number. Chapter 10. And Peleg, ban of Abar, died in those days, in the 40th year of the Chai of Abram, ban of Terah. And all the days of Peleg were 239 years. And when Yahuwah had scattered the banim of men because of their sin at the tower, see, they spread out into many divisions, and all the banim of men were dispersed to the four corners of the earth. And all the clans came to be each according to its language, its land, or its city. And the banim of men built many cities according to their clans in all the places where they went, and throughout the earth where Yahuwah had scattered them. And afterward some of them built cities in places from which they were destroyed, and they called these cities after their own names, or the names of their children, or after their name, or after their particular occurrences. And the banim of Japheth, ban of Noah, went and built themselves cities in the places where they were scattered, and they called all their cities after their names. And the banim of Japheth were divided over the face of the earth into many divisions and languages. And these are the banim of Japheth according to their clans: Gomar, Magog, Madai, Yawan, Tubal, Mashak, and Tiras. These are the children of Japheth according to their generations. And the children of Gomar according to their cities were Francum, who dwelt in the land of Franza, by the river Franza, by the river Sana. And the children of Riphath are the Bartonim, who dwell in the land of Bartonia, by the river Lada, which empties the waters in the great sea, Gihon, that is Oceanus. And the children of Togarmah are 10 clans, and these are their names: Buzar, Parzunak, Balgar, Alikanum, Ragbib, Tarki, Bid, Zabuk, Ongal, and Tilmaz. All these spread and settled in the north, and built themselves cities. And they called their cities after their own names. Those are they who dwell by the rivers Hithla and Yithla to this day. But the clans of Anguli, Balgar, and Parzunak, they dwell by the great river Dubni, and the names of their cities are also according to their own names. And the children of Yawan are the Yawanim, who dwell in the land of Macedonia. And the children of Madayara are the Uralum, that dwell in the land of Kursun. And the children of Tubal are those that dwell in the land of Tuscana, by the river Pashia. And the children of Mashak are the Shibashinim. And the children of Tiras and Rushash, Kushni, and Ungulis, all these went and built themselves cities. These are the cities that are situated by the sea Yabus, by the river Kura, which empties itself in the river Tragan. And the children of Alisha are the Almanim, and they also went and built themselves cities. Those are the cities situated between the mountains of Eyob and Shibatmo. And they were the people of Lombardy, who dwell opposite the mountains of Eyob and Shibatmo. And they conquered the land of Italia, and remain there to this day. Italia's in here. That's funny. Italy, and then the word Ya, like Italy with the I, Ya, Italia, the land of Italia. and remain there to this day. There's like a few of these places were called after modern day things. Or maybe the modern day ones are renaming it, like Franza, like France in there. It's crazy. And the children of Shittim are the Rumetim, who dwell in the valley of Canufia by the river Tibrau. And the children of Dudanim are those who dwell in the cities of the sea Gihon, in the land of Burna. These are the clans of the children of Yapath, according to their cities and languages, when they were scattered after the tower, and they called their cities after their names and occurrences. And these are the names of all their cities according to their clans, which they built in those days after the tower. Could it be that Italy and France and all these things were still connected to their original name of their ancient origins? Like they knew their history and like we're going to rename it the original name of our fathers, Italia and Franza and all that kind of thing, right? Who knows? Possibility. Oh, yeah. Hold on, motherfucker. I was just kidding with that breathing there. Alright. Yeah. It's better. And the children of Ham were Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan, according to their generations and cities. All these went and built themselves cities as they found fit places for them. And they called their cities after the names of their fathers, Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. And the children of Mitzrayim are the Ludim, Anamim, Lahabim, Naphtuhim, Patrushim, Kasluhim, and Kaphturim, 7 clans. And these dwell by the river Shihur, that is the Wadi of Mitzrayim. And they built themselves cities and called them after their own names. And the children of Patrus and Kaslu intermarried together, and from them went forth the Parashtim, and the Azatim, and the Gergashim, the Gettim, and the Acronim, and all the 5 clans. These also built themselves cities, and they called their cities after the names of their fathers to this day. And the children of Canaan also built themselves cities, and they called their cities after their names, 11 cities, and others without number. And 4 men from the clan of Ham went to the land of the plain. These are the names of the 4 men: Sodom, Amorah, Admah, and Zeboim. And these men built themselves 4 cities in the land of the plain, and they called the names of their cities after their own names. And they and their children and all belonging to them dwelt in those cities, and they were fruitful and multiplied greatly and dwelt peaceably. And Sair, ban of Hur, ban of Hiwi, ban of Canaan, went and found a valley opposite of Mount Paran, and he built a city there, and he and his 7 banim and his household dwelt there. And he called the city which he built Sair, according to his name. That is the land of Sair to this day. These are the clans of the children of Ham, according to their languages and cities, when they were scattered to their countries after the tower. And some of the children of Sham, ban of Noah, father of all the children of Abad, also went and built themselves cities in the places wherein they were scattered, and they called their cities after their names. And the banim of Sham were Elam, Ashur, Arpachshad, Ludim, and Aram. And they built themselves cities and called their names of their cities after their names. And Ashur, son of Sham, and his children, and his household, went out at that time, a very large body of them, and they went to a distant land that they found, and they came upon a very extensive valley in the land that they went to, and they built themselves 4 cities, and they called them after their own names and occurrences. And these are the names of the cities which the children of Ashur built: Nanuah, Rasan, Kala, and Rehoboth, Ir. And the children of Ashur dwell there to this day. And the children of Aram also went and built themselves a city, and they called the name of the city Uz, after their eldest brother, and they dwelt there. That is the land of Uz to this day. And in the 2nd year after the tower, a man from the house of Ashur, whose name was Bala, went from the land of Nineveh to sojourn with his household wherever he could find a place. And they came until opposite the cities of the plain against Sodom, and they dwelt there. And the man rose up and built there a small city, and called its name Bala, after his name. And this is the land of Suar to this day. And these are the clans of the children of Sham, according to their languages and cities, after they were scattered over the earth after the tower. And every reign, city, and clan of the clans of the children of Noah built themselves many cities after this. And they established governments in all their cities in order to be regulated by their orders. So did all the clans of the children of Noah forever. Chapter 11. Does anybody else want to read? Would anybody like to jump on live and read a little bit? Whoever owns a copy of Yashar. We're going to be in chapter 11. Right? Maybe we can start chapter 12 or the next line of Barashyt chapter 11 afterwards. Continuing. And Nimrud, son of Cush, was still in the land of Shinar, and he reigned over it and dwelt there, and he built cities in the land of Shinar. And these are the names of the 4 cities which he built. And he called their names after the occurrences that befell them in the building of the tower. And he called the first Babal, saying, because Yahuwah there confused the language of the whole earth. And the name of the second he called Arak, because from there Elohim dispersed them. And the third he called Akkad, saying, there was a great battle in that place. And the fourth he called Kalna, because his princes and mighty men were consumed there. And they troubled Yahuwah. They rebelled and transgressed against him. And when Nimrud had built these cities in the land of Shinar, he placed in them the remainder of his people, his princes, and his mighty men that were left in his reign. And Nimrud dwelt in Babel, and there he renewed his reign over the rest of his subjects, and he reigned safely. And the subjects and the princes of Nimrud called his name Amraphel, saying, at the tower his princes and men fell through his means. And despite this, Nimrod did not return to Yahuwah, and he continued in wickedness and teaching wickedness to the banim of men. And Mardon, his ban, was worse than his father, and continued to add to the abominations of his father. And he caused the banim of men to sin. Therefore it is said, from the wicked goes forth wickedness. At that time there was a fighting between the clans of the children of Ham, and they were dwelling in the cities which they had built. And Kadulaumar, sovereign of Elam, went away from the clans of the children of Ham, and he fought with them. and he subdued them. And he went to the 5 cities of the plain, and he fought against them, and he subdued them, and they were under his control. And they served him 12 years, and they gave him a yearly levy. And at that time Nahor, the ban of Sarug, died in the 49th year of the Chai of Abram, and his Abram ban of Terah. And in the 50th year of the Chai of Abram ban of Terah, Abram came forth from the house of Noach, and he went to his father's house. And Abram knew Yahuwah, and he went in his ways and Torah. And Yahuwah his Elohim was with him. And Terah his father was in those days still captain of the army of sovereign Nimrod, and he still followed strange mighty ones. And Abram came to his father's house, and saw 12 mighty ones standing there in their temple. And the wrath of Abram was kindled when he saw these images in his father's house. And Abram said, As Yahuwah lives, these images shall not remain in my father's house. So shall Yahuwah, who created me, do to me in 3 days' time, if I do not break them all. And Abram went from them, and his wrath burned within him. And Abram hastened and went from the chamber to his father's outer court. And he found his father sitting in the court, and all his servants with him. And Abram came and sat before him. And Abram asked his father, saying, Father, tell me, where is Elohim, who created the Shamayim and earth, and all the banim of men on the earth, and who created you and me? And Terah answered his ban Abram, and said, Look, those who created us are with us all in this house. And Abram said to his father, My master, show them to me, please. And Terah brought Abram into the chamber of the inner court. And Abram looked, and see, the whole room was filled of mighty ones of wood and stone, 12 great images, and others smaller than they without number. And Terah said to his ban, Look, these are they which made all you see on earth. These are they which made all you see on earth, and which created you, and I, and all mankind. And Terah bowed down to his mighty ones, and he then went away from them, and Abram his ban went away with him. And when Abram had gone from them, he went to his mother and sat before her. And he said to his mother, See, my father has shown me those who made the Shamayim and earth, and all the banim of men. Now, therefore, hurry and fetch a kid from the flock, and make of it a tasty dish, that I may bring it to my father's mighty ones, as an offering for them to eat. Maybe I may become acceptable to them. And his mother did so, and she fetched a kid, and made a tasty dish of it, and brought it to Abram. And Abram took the tasty dish from his mother, and brought it before his father's mighty ones, and he drew near to them, that they might eat. And Terah his father did not know of it. And Abram saw on the day when he was sitting among them, that they had no voice, no hearing, no motion, and not one of them could stretch out his hand to eat. And Abram mocked him and said, Indeed, the tasty dish that I have prepared has not pleased them, or maybe it was too little for them, and for that reason they will not eat. Therefore tomorrow I will prepare a fresh tasty dish, better and more plentiful than this, in order that I may see the result. And it came to be on the next day that Abram directed his mother concerning the tasty dish, and his mother rose and took 3 fine kids from the flock, and she made of them an exceedingly tasty dish, such as her ban loved, and she gave it to her ban Abram. And Terah his father did not know of it. And Abram took the tasty dish from his mother and brought it before his father's mighty ones into the chamber. And he came near to them that they might eat. And he placed it before them. And Abram said before them all day, thinking maybe they might eat. And Abram watched them, and see, they had neither voice nor hearing, nor did one of them stretch out his hands to the meat to eat. And in the evening of that day, in the house, the Ruach of Elohim came upon Abram, and he called out and said, Woe to my father and this wicked generation, whose heart are inclined to vanity, who serve these idols of wood and stone, which can neither eat, smell, hear, nor speak, who have mouths without speech, even without sight, ears without hearing, eyes without sight, ears without hearing, and hands without feeling, and legs which cannot move. Like them are those that made them, and that trust in them. And when Abraham saw all these matters, his wrath was kindled against his father, and he hastened and took a hatchet in his hand, and came into the chamber of the mighty ones, and he broke all his father's mighty ones. And when he had done this, breaking the images, he placed a hatchet in the hand of the great mighty one which was there before them. And he went out, and Terah his father came home, for he had heard at the door the sound of the striking of the hatchet. So Terah came into the house to know what this was about. And Terah, having heard the noise of the hatchet in the room of images, ran into the room to the images, and he met Abram going out. And Terah entered the room and found all the idols falling down and broken, and the hatchet in the hand of the largest, which was not broken, and the tasty dish which Abram his bond had made was still before them. And when Terah saw this, his wrath was greatly kindled, and he hastened and went from the room to Abram, and he found Abram his bond still sitting in the house. And he said to him, What is this deed you have done to my mighty ones? And Abram answered Terah his father, and he said, Not so, my master, for I brought a tasty dish before them, and when I came near to them with the meat, that they might eat, they all at once stretched out their hands to eat, before the large one had put out his hand to eat. And the large one saw their works that they did before him, and his wrath was violently kindled against him. And he went and took the hatchet that was in the house, and came to them, and broke them all. And look, the hatchet is yet in his hand, as you see. And Terah's wrath was kindled against his bond Abram when he spoke this. And Terah said to Abram his bond in his wrath, What is this tale that you have told? You speak lies to me. Is there in these mighty ones Ruach, being of power, to do all you have told me? Are they not wood and stone? And have I not myself made them? And can you speak such lies, saying that the large mighty one that was with them smote them? It is you that placed the hatchet in his hands, and then say he smote them all. And Abraham answered his father and said to him, And how can you then serve these idols, in whom there is no power to do any matter? Can those idols in which you trust deliver you? Can they hear your prayers when you call upon them? Can they deliver you from the hands of your enemies, or will they fight your battles for you against your enemies, that you should serve wood and stone, which can neither speak nor hear? And now, indeed, it is not too for you nor for the banim of men that are connected with you to do these matters. Are you so ignorant, so foolish, and so short of understanding that you will serve wood and stone and do after this manner, and forget Yahuwah Elohim, who made the Shamayim and the earth, and who created you in the earth, and bring a great evil upon your beings in this matter by serving stone and wood? Did not our fathers in days of old sin in this matter? And Yahuwah Elohim of the universe brought the waters of the flood upon them and destroyed the whole earth. And how can you continue to do this and to serve mighty ones of wood and stone, who cannot hear or speak or deliver you from oppression, bringing down the earth and of the Elohim of the universe upon you? Now therefore, my father, refrain from his, and do not bring evil upon your being and the being of your household. And Abram hastened and leaped from before his father, and took the hatchet from his father's largest idol, with which Abram broke it, and ran away. And Sarah, seeing all this Abram had done, hastened to go from his house. And he went to the sovereign, and he came before Nimrod, and stood before him. And he bowed down to the sovereign, and the sovereign said, What do you want? And he said, I beg you, my master, to hear me. Now 50 years ago, a child was born to me, and thus has he done to my mighty ones, and thus has he spoke. And now therefore, my master and sovereign, send for him, that he may come before you, and judge him according to the law, that we may be delivered from his evil. And the sovereign sent 3 men of his servants, and they went and brought Abram before the sovereign. And Nimrod and all his princes and servants were sitting before him that day, and Terah also sat before them. And the sovereign said to Abraham, What is this that you have done to your father and to his mothers and to his mighty ones? And Abraham answered the sovereign in the words that he spoke to his father. And he said, The language that large mighty one that was with me in the house did to them what you have heard. Fall asleep again. What is this that you have done to your father and to his mighty ones? And Abraham answered the sovereign in the words that he spoke to his father. And he said, The large mighty one that was with them in the house did to them what you have heard. And the sovereign said to Abraham, Had they power to speak and eat and do as you have said? And Abraham answered the sovereign, saying, And if there be no power in them, why do you serve them and cause the banim of men to stray through your folly? Do you think that they can deliver you or do anything smart or great that you should serve them? And why will you not acknowledge the Elohim of the whole universe, who created you, and in whose power it is to kill and keep alive? O foolish, simple, and ignorant sovereign, woe unto you forever. I thought you would teach your servants the upright way, but you have not done this, and have lifted the whole earth with your sins, and the sins of your people who have followed your ways. Do you not know, or have you not heard, that the evil which you do, our ancestors sinned? Do you not know, or have you not heard, that this evil which you do, our ancestors sinned there in days of old? And the eternal Elohim brought the waters of the flood upon them, and destroyed them all, and all destroyed the whole earth for their sakes. And will you and your people rise up now and do likewise in this work, in order to bring down the wrath of Yahuwah Elohim of the universe, and to bring evil upon you and the whole earth. Now therefore put away this evil deed which you do, and serve the Elohim of the universe, as your being is in his hands, and then it will be well within you. And if your wicked heart will not listen to my words, to cause you to forsake your evil ways and to serve the eternal Elohim, then will you die in the shame in the latter days, you, your people, and all who are connected with you, hearing your words or walking in your evil ways. And when Abraham had ceased speaking before the sovereign and the princes, Abraham lifted up his eyes to the Shamayim, and he said, Yahuwah sees all the wicked, and he will judge them. Chapter 12. Let's go back in hour. Chapter 12. Anybody want to read chapter 12? Go live a little bit. Go on once. Go on twice. Alright. Chapter 12. And when the sovereign heard the words of Abraham, he ordered him to be put into prison. And Abraham was 10 days in prison. And at the end of those days, the sovereign ordered that all the sovereign princes and governors of different provinces and the wise men should come before him. And they sat before him, and Abraham was still in the prison house. What does that sound like? Revelation. You shall be thrown into prison for 10 days and tried. Be trustworthy unto death, and you shall have the crown of Chai. And look, this book, this story in Yashar, is giving us hopeful expectations, giving us confidence. He was thrown into prison for 10 days. And then what happened? We're about to find out. And that's what Yahuwah says, be trustworthy unto the crown of Chai. And the sovereign said to the princes and wise men, have you heard what Abraham ban of Terah has done to his father? Thus has he done to him. And I ordered him to be brought before me, and thus he has spoken. His heart did not doubt him, neither did he stir in my presence. And see, now he is confined in the prison, and therefore decide what judgment is due to this man who reviled the sovereign, and who spoke and did all the matters that you heard. And they all answered the sovereign, saying, the man who reviles the sovereign should be hanged upon the tree. But having done all the matters that he said, and having despised our mighty ones, he must therefore be burned to death. For this is the law of this matter. If it pleases the sovereign to do this, let him order his servants to kindle a fire both night and day in your brick furnace, and then we will throw this man into it. We will throw this man into it. And the sovereign did so. And the sovereign did so, and he commanded his servants that they should prepare a fire for 3 days and 3 nights in the sovereign's furnace. that is the Kasdim. And the sovereign ordered them to take Abram from prison and bring him out to be burned. Hey, we got the 3 nights, 3 days, 3 nights right here. And all the sovereign servants, princes, masters, governors, and judges, and all the inhabitants of the land, about 900,000 men, stood opposite the furnace to see Abram. And all the women and little ones crowded on the roofs and towers to see what was done with Abram. And they all stood together at a distance. And there was not a man left that did not come on that day to watch the event. And when Abram was brought, the astrologers of the sovereign and the wise men saw Abram, and they cried out to the sovereign, saying, Our sovereign master, indeed this is the man whom we know to have been the child at whose birth the great star swallowed the 4 stars, which we declared to the sovereign now 50 years since. And see, now his father has also transgressed your commands and mocked you by bringing you another child which you killed. And when the sovereign heard their words, he was exceedingly wroth, and he ordered Terah to be brought before him. And the sovereign said, Have you heard what the astrologers have spoken? Now tell me truly, did you do so? And if you shall speak truth, you shall be acquitted. And seeing that the sovereign's wrath was greatly burning, Terah said to the sovereign, My master, he said to the sovereign, My master and sovereign, you have heard the truth, and what the wise men have spoken is right. And the sovereign said, How could you do this matter, to transgress my orders, to give me a child that you did not bring forth, and to take value for him? And Terah answered the sovereign, Because my tender feelings were stirred for my bond at that time, and I took a bond of my female servant, and I brought him to the sovereign. And the sovereign said, Who advised you to do this? Tell me, do not hide anything from me, and then you shall not die. And Terah was greatly afraid in the sovereign's presence, and he said to the sovereign, It was Haran, my eldest bond, who advised me to do this. And Haran was 32 years old in those days that Abram was born. But Haran did not advise his father to do anything, for Terah said this to the sovereign in order to deliver his own being from the sovereign, for he feared greatly. And the sovereign said to Terah, Haran, your bond, who advised you to do this, shall die through fire with Abram, for the sentence of death is upon him for having rebelled against the sovereign's desire in doing this matter. And Haran at that time felt inclined to follow the ways of Abram, but he kept it within himself. And Haran said in his heart, See, now the sovereign has seized Abram because of these matters which Abram did. And it shall come to pass that if Abram prevails over the sovereign, I will follow him. But if the sovereign prevails, I will go after the sovereign. And when Terah had spoken this to the sovereign concerning Haran, his bond, the sovereign ordered Haran to be seized with Abram. And when Terah had spoken this, and they brought them both, Abram and Haran, his brother, to throw them both into the fire. And all the inhabitants of the land and the sovereign's servants and princes and all the women and the little ones were there, standing over them that day. And the sovereign's servants took Abram and his brother, and they stripped them of all their clothes, except their lower garments which were on them. And they bound their hands and feet with flax cords. And the servants of the sovereign lifted them up and threw them both into the furnace. And Yahuwah loved Abram, and he had compassion on him. And Yahuwah came down and delivered Abram from the fire, and he was not burned. but all the cords with which they bound him were burned, while Abram remained and walked about in the fire. And Haran died when they threw him into the fire, and he was burned to ashes, for his heart was not perfect with Yahuwah. And those men who threw him into the fire, the flame of the fire spread over them, and they were burned, and 12 men of them died. And Abram walked in the midst of the fire 3 days and 3 nights. And all the servants of the sovereign saw him walking in the fire, and they came and told the sovereign, saying, See, we have seen Abram walking about in the midst of the fire, and even the lower garments which are upon him are not burned, but the cord with which he was bound is burned. And when these sovereign heard their words, his heart fainted, and he would not believe them. So he sent other trustworthy princes to see this matter. And they went and saw it, and told it to the sovereign. And the sovereign rose to go and see it. And he saw Abram walking to and fro in the midst of the fire. And he saw the body of Haran burned. And the sovereign wondered greatly. And the sovereign ordered Abram to be taken out from the fire, and his servants approached to take him out, but they could not, for the fire was round about, and the flame ascending toward them from the furnace. And the sovereign's servants fled from it. And the sovereign rebuked them, saying, Make haste and bring Abram out of the fire, so that you shall not die. And the servants of the sovereign again approached to bring Abram out, and the flames came upon them and burned their faces, so that 8 of them died. And when the sovereign saw that his servants could not approach the fire, lest they should be burned, the sovereign called to Abram, O servant of the Elohim who is in the Shamayim, come out from the midst of the fire, and come here before me. And Abram listened to the voice of the sovereign, and he came out from the fire, and came and stood before the sovereign. And when Abram came out, the sovereign and all his servants saw Abram coming before the sovereign, with his lower garments upon him, for they were not burned, but the cord with which he was bound was burned. And the sovereigns said to Abram, How is it that you were not burned in the fire? And Abram said to the sovereign, The Elohim of the Shamayim and earth, in whom I trust, and who has all in his power, he delivered me from the fire into which you cast me. And Haran, the brother of Abram, who was burned to ashes, and Haran, the brother of Abram, was burned to ashes, and they sought for his body, but they found it consumed. And Haran was 82 years old when they died in the fire of Kasdim. And the sovereign princes and inhabitants of the land, seeing that Abram was delivered from the fire, came and bowed down to Abram. And Abram said to them, Do not bow down to me, but bow down to the Elohim of the world, who made you, and serve him, and go in his ways. For it is he who delivered me from out of the fire, and it is he who created the beings and ruaku of all men, and formed man in his mother's womb, and brought him forth into the world. And it is he who will deliver those who trust in him from all pain. Man, so even the commandment to trust in him was even at this point. Being righteous, but trusting. And this matter seemed very wondrous in the eyes of the sovereign and princes, that Abram was saved from the fire, and that Haran was burned. And the sovereign gave Abram many presents, and he gave him his 2 chief servants from the sovereign's house. The name of one was Uni, and the name of the other was Eleazar. And all the sovereigns, princes, and servants gave Abram many gifts of silver and gold and pearl, and the sovereign and his princes sent him away, and he went in peace. Ever wondered how Abram was wealthy to begin with? Well, that's probably it right there. Now we know. That's how he got Eleazar. Continue. And Abram went out from the sovereign in peace, and many of the sovereign's servants followed him, and about 300 men joined him. And Abram returned on that day and went to his father's house, he and the men that followed him. And Abram served Yahuwah his Elohim all the days of his chai, and he walked in his ways and followed his Torah. And from then onward, Abram inclined the hearts of the banim of men to serve Yahuwah. And at that time, Nahor and Abram took for themselves wives, the daughter of their brother Haran. The wife of Nahor was Milcah, and the name of Abram's wife was Sarai. But Sarai, wife of Abram, was barren. She had no offspring in those days. And at the passing of 2 years from Abram's going out of the fire, that is, in the 52nd year of his chai, see, sovereign Nimrod sat in Babel upon the throne, and the sovereign fell asleep and dreamed that he was standing with his companies and armies in a valley opposite the sovereign's furnace. And he lifted his eyes and saw a man in the likeness of Abram coming from out from the furnace, and that he came and stood before the sovereign with his sword drawn, and then leaped to the sovereign with his sword. The sovereign then fled from the man, for he was afraid. And while he was running, the man threw an egg on the sovereign's head, and the egg became a great river. And the sovereign dreamed that all his companies sank in that river and died. And the sovereign fled with 3 men who were before him, and he escaped. Man, see, that tells you right there. This is true. I believe it's true because he threw an egg at his head. What does that sound like? Easter, right? Cracking the eggs on the head. And so he's having a dream and something that's familiar in a way that he can understand and relate. Because Easter is Babylon worship. See what I'm saying? That's why that's in here. You know, the whole Easter cracking the eggs on their heads with the confetti. You know, here it's not confetti, but a river came out because the confetti symbolizes, fertility and like their version of the rivers of Chai. That was like rivers of Chai coming out with the yolk and all that. It's like, fertility to them. It's power of the deities. It's a Babylon worship when you do Easter like that. Or even Ishtar, just to even do it. I'm tripping, but like to do it. Like to do it like that for real, And the sovereign dreamed that all his company sank in that river and died, and the sovereigns fled with 3 men. Let me go back to that. Yeah, the sovereign, in the dream, the sovereign then fled from the man, for he was afraid. And while he was running, the man threw an egg on the sovereign's head, something he knew about, and the egg became a great river. And that's the Ishtar story. And the sovereign dreamed that all his company sank in that river and died, and the sovereign fled with 3 men who were before him, and he escaped. And the sovereign looked at these men, and they were clothed in princely robes, and the garments of sovereigns, as the garments of sovereigns, and had the appearance and esteem of sovereigns. And while they were running, the river again turned into an egg, before the sovereign, and there came out from the egg a young bird. Hey, there you go, an egg-laying rabbit. A bird turned into an egg-laying rabbit. All that. And from the egg a young bird, which came before the sovereign, and flew at his head, and plucked out the sovereign's eye. And the sovereign was grieved at the sight, and he awoke out of his sleep, and his spirit was agitated, and he felt in great fear. And in the morning the sovereign rose from his couch in fear, and when he ordered all the wise men and the magicians to come before him, the sovereign related his dream to them. And a wise servant of the sovereign, whose name was Anuki, answered the sovereign, saying, "This is none else but the evil of Abram and his seed, which will spring up against my master and sovereign in the latter days. And see, the day will come when Abram and his seed and the children of his household will fight against my sovereign, and they will smite all the sovereign's armies and his companies. And as to what you have said concerning 3 men, which you saw like yourself, and which escaped, this means that only you will escape with 3 sovereigns from the sovereigns of the earth, who will be with you in battle. And that which you saw of the river, which turned into an egg as at first, and the young bird plucked out your eye. This means none else but the seed of Abraham will slay the sovereign in the latter days. This is the sovereign's dream, and this is its interpretation. And the dream is true, and the interpretation which your servant has given you is right. Now therefore, my sovereign, indeed you know that it is now 52 years since your wise men saw this at the birth of Abraham, and if my sovereign will allow Abraham to live on the earth, it will be to the injury of my master and sovereign. For all the days that Abraham lives, neither you nor your reign will be established, for this was known formerly at his birth. And why will my sovereign not slay him, that his evil may be kept from you in the latter days?" And Nimrod listened to the voice of Anuki, and he sent some of the servants in secret to go and seize Abraham and bring him before the sovereign to suffer death. And Eleazar, Abraham's servant, whom the sovereign had given him, was at that time in the presence of the sovereign, and he heard what Anuki had advised the sovereign, and what the sovereign had said to cause Abraham's death. And Eleazar said to Abraham, "Hurry, rise up and save your being, that you may not die through the hands of the sovereign. For thus did he see in a dream concerning you, and thus did Anuki interpret it, and thus also did Anuki advise the sovereign concerning you." And Abraham listened to the voice of Eleazar, and Abraham hastened and ran for safety to the house of Noah and his bond Sham, and he concealed himself there, and found a place of safety. And the sovereign's servants came to Abraham's house to seek him, but they could not find him. And they searched throughout the country, and he was not to be found. And they went and searched in every direction, and he was not to be met with. And when the sovereign's servants could not find Abraham, they returned to the sovereign, and the sovereign's wrath against Abraham was stilled, as they did not find him. And the sovereign drove from his mind this matter concerning Abraham. Man, this is the prophetic to hiding YAHUSHA. We already know. And God ain't even got to say it. When Yahusha was a baby and they hit him. And just like Masha, they hit him. And Abraham was concealed in Noah's house for 1 month. For Abraham was concealed in Noah's house for 1 month until the sovereign had forgotten this matter. But Abraham was still afraid of the sovereign. And Terah came to see Abraham, his bond, secretly in the house of Noah. And Terah was very great in the eyes of the sovereign. And Abraham said to his father, "Do you not know that the sovereign thinks to slay me and to annihilate my name from the earth by the advice of his wicked counselors? Now, whom have you here, and what have you in this land? Arise, let us go together to the land of Canaan, that we may be delivered from his hand, lest you also perish through him in the latter days." Man, do you see what kind of love Abraham has? His own father tried to surrender him and put him to death because of him smashing his idols. He went and snitched and told the sovereign to have his own bond. Abraham burnt in the fire, and Terah was all for it. You know what I'm saying? And then, but when the king found out that Abraham was the child that was supposed to die, but Terah kept him alive. Oh, oops! You know what I'm saying? And then he blames it on his other bond and has him put to death. You know, so he was trying to have Abraham put to death, put his other bond to death, and Abraham is still like just looking past all that. The fact that his own father tried to kill him and then later blames his brother for it, that, you know, about keeping him alive in the first place. And Abraham's like, "It's all cool, man. Look, you need to come with me to stay alive. They're going to try to kill you." You know what I mean? That's the kind of love Yahusha has, that we're supposed to have, where, you know, like, it's just like you're forgiven no matter what, but let's just try to move forward and like preserve Chai and do the righteousness. You know what I mean? Like, for those who watch Avengers, it's like, Thor, I'm trying to say a name like that, but, you know, him and his brother, you know, he's still trying to save his brother, even though his brother keeps turning on him. He keeps trying to, like, just hoping for the best, loving him anyways, and doing the right thing, and his brother keeps turning on him. But yeah, that's cool that Abraham has that kind of love. You know, who can relate to that? Or maybe you're surprised, and maybe that's crazy. But we should strive to be able to relate to that. Like, it's all cool. It's all cool. Like, I ain't worried about that no more. So let's continue. Abraham was still afraid of the sovereign, and Terah came to see him. Okay, and Abraham said to his father, "Do you not know that the sovereign thinks to slay me and to annihilate my name from the earth by the advice of his wicked counselors?" See, a lot of us wouldn't even trust our fathers after that. But see, that's why someone like Abraham didn't get burned up in the fire, because he didn't have that kind of heart towards his father. Even while that was happening, he's like, "Oh man, all right, let's see. I trust you, Yahusha." He wasn't tripping on them. He didn't take it personal. He took it as a test. Now whom have you here, and what have you in this land? Arise, let us go together to the land of Canaan, that we may be delivered from his hand, lest you also perish through him in the latter days. Do you not know, or have you not heard, that it is not through love that Namrud gives you all this honor, but it is only for his benefit that he bestows all this tube upon you? See, Abraham knows to speak that, love language, like, he is touching the heart of the matter, the heart to heart. Like, he doesn't love you, Pop, like, you think he cool with you, but he's just using you for your benefit, like how you benefit him. Do you not know, or have you not heard, that it is not through love that Nimrod gives you all this honor, but it is only for his benefit that he bestows all this tube upon you, all this tubeness? And if he does to you greater tube than this, indeed these are only vanities of the world, for wealth and riches cannot help in the day of rage and wrath. Now therefore listen to my voice, and let us arise and go to the land of Canaan. out of the reach of injury from Nimrod, and serve Yahuwah, who created you in the earth, and it will be well with you, and cast away all the worthlessness which you pursue. And Abram ceased to speak. Then Noach and his bond Sham answered Terah, saying, The word is right which Abram has said to you. And Terah listened to the voice of his bond. And Abram ceased to speak to them. Noach and his bond Sham answered Terah, saying, The word is right which Abram has said to you. And Terah listened to the voice of his bond Abram. And Terah did all that Abram said, for this was from Yahuwah, that the sovereign should not cause Abram's death. That concludes the reading of Yashar from chapter 7 through chapter 12. That wasn't so bad. Barashyt chapter 11. And it came to be, all the earth had one language and one speech. And it came to be, as they departed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to each other, Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. And they had bricks for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower, whose top is in the Shamayim, and make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered over all the face of the earth. Then Yahuwah came down to see the city and the tower which the Banim of men had built. And Yahuwah said, Look, they are one people, and they all have one language, and this is what they began to do. And now they are not going to be withheld from doing whatever they plan to do. Come, let us go there and confuse their language, so that they do not understand one another's speech. And Yahuwah scattered them from there over the face of all the earth, and they ceased building the city. That is why its name was called Babal. I like how right here it corrects the translation a little better. Probably was what happened because, Satan tried to get his little input in things too. It says that let us destroy the city, or else nothing will be impossible for man. And that gives the idea that, when atheists or some people with a bad motive read it, they're like, oh, okay, so if we all unite as one people, we'll actually be able to overthrow Yahuwah, because Yahuwah said, let us destroy their tower, because they've all become one language, and then if we don't, nothing will be impossible for them. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a threat to Yahuwah. That's not what it meant. It just meant that whatever they're setting out to do concerning that, they will complete. They're going to complete their task, and it'll be all vanity, basically. It's all worthless. It's all just trying to fulfill their own worldly, meaningless desire. I'll read that again. It said, Come, let us go there and confuse their language, so that they do not understand one another's speech. And Yahuwah scattered them there over all the face of the earth, and they ceased building the city. One before that. And Yahuwah said, Look, they are one people, and they all have one language, and this is what they began to do. And now they are not going to be withheld from doing whatever they plan to do. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to be withheld from doing whatever they plan. In other words, they're going to, they're not holding back on what they plan to do, is all he's saying. They're going to go all the way through with this to try to make it hit the Shamayim, which they're not really going to hit the Shamayim to Yahuwah. They're just going to waste their time doing that. So he's let me just stop this now, because this is not going nowhere. As we saw in the Yashar account, they just went up and started shooting some arrows and, came down like blood. And they're just, wasting their time doing that. So come, let us go there and confuse their language so that they do not understand one another's speech. And Yahuwah scattered them from there over the face of all the earth. And they ceased building the tower, building the city. This is why the name was called Babal, because there Yahuwah confused the language of all the earth, and from there Yahuwah scattered them from over the face of all the earth. This is the genealogy of Sham. Sham was 100 years old and brought forth Arpachshad 2 years after the flood. And after he brought forth Arpachshad, Sham lived 500 years and brought forth Banim and daughters. And Arpachshad lived 35 years and brought forth Shalah. And after he brought forth Shalah, Arpachshad lived 403 years and brought forth Banim and daughters. And Shalah lived 30 years and brought forth Abar. And after he brought forth Abar, Shalah lived 403 years and brought forth Banim and daughters. And Abar lived 34 years and brought forth Palag. And after he brought forth Palag, Abar lived 430 years and brought forth Banim and daughters. And Palag lived 30 years and brought forth Ra'u. And after he brought forth Ra'u, Palag lived 209 years and brought forth Banim and daughters. And Ra'u lived 32 years and brought forth Sarug. And after Sarug lived 30 years, he brought forth Nahur. And after he brought forth Sarug, Ra'u lived 207 years and brought forth Banim and daughters. And Sarug lived 30 years and brought forth Nahur. And after he brought forth Nahur, Sarug lived 200 years and brought forth Banim and daughters. And Nahur lived 29 years and brought forth Terah. And after he brought forth Terah, Nahur lived 119 years and brought forth Banim and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and brought forth Abram, Nahur, and Haran. And Terah lived 70 years and brought forth Abram, Nahur, and Haran. And this is the genealogy of Terah. Terah brought forth Abram, Nahur, and Haran brought forth Lut. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his birth in Ur-Kasdim. And Abram and Nahur took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahur's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Yiscah. And Sarai was barren; she had no child. And Sarah took his ban Abram and his grandson Lut, ban of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, his ban Abram's wife, and they went out with them from Ur-Kasdim to go to the land of Canaan. And they came to Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah came to be 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Psalms, Tehillim, chapter 5. To the chief singer on flute, a psalm, Tehillim of David. Give ear to my words, O Yahuwah. Consider my meditation. Attend to the voice of my cry, my sovereign and my Elohim. For unto you I pray, O Yahuwah. In the morning you hear my voice. I present myself to you in the morning, and I look up. For you are not N.A.Y.Al taking delight in wickedness, nor does evil dwell with you. The boasters do not stand before your eyes. You hate all workers of wickedness. You destroy those speaking falsehood. Yahuwah loathes a man of blood and deceit. But I enter your house. In the greatness of your kindness, I bow myself toward your Kadash Haikal in your reverence. O Yahuwah, lead me in your righteousness because of those watching me. Make your way straight before my face, for there is no stability in their mouth. Their inward part is destruction. Their throat is an open grave. They flatter with their tongue. Declare them guilty, O Elohim. Let them fall by their own counsels. Thrust them away from their many transgressions, because they have rebelled against you. But let all those who take refuge in you rejoice. Let them who ever shout for joy because you shelter them. Let them ever shout for joy because you shelter them. And let those who love your name exult in you. For you barak the righteous. For you barak the righteous. O Yahuwah, you surround him with favor, and as you surround him with favor as with a shield. Word of Yahuwah. Hallelujah, YAHUSHA. Proverbs chapter 2. My bond, if you accept my words and treasure up my commandments with you, so that you make your ear attend to wisdom, incline your heart to understanding. For if you cry for discernment, lift up your voice for understanding. If you seek her as silver and search for her as hidden treasures, then you would understand the reverence of Yahuwah and find the knowledge of Elohim. For Yahuwah gives wisdom out of his mouth, knowledge and understanding, and he treasures up stability for the straight, a shield to those walking blamelessly, to watch over the paths of right ruling, and the way of his kind ones he guards. Then you would understand righteousness and right ruling, and straightness, every true path, for wisdom would enter your heart, and knowledge be pleasant to your being. Discretion would guard you, understanding would watch over you, to deliver you from the evil way, from the man who speaks perversities, those who leave the paths of straightness, to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice to do evil. They delight in the perversities of evil, whose paths are crooked, and they are perverted in their ways, to deliver you from the strange woman, from the foreigner who flatters with her words, who forsakes the companion of her youth, and has forgotten the covenant of her Elohim. For her house has sunk down to death, and her paths to the dead. None going into her returns, nor do they reach the paths of Chai. So walk in the way of tubeness, and guard the paths of righteousness. For the straight shall dwell in the earth, and the perfect be left in it. But the wicked shall be cut off from the earth, and the treacherous ones plucked out of it. Matthew chapter 6. Beware of doing your kind deeds before men, in order to be seen by them. Otherwise you have no reward from your Father in the Shamayim. Thus, when you do a kind deed, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do, in the congregations and in the streets, to be praised by men. Truly I say to you, they have their reward. But when you do a kind deed, do not let your hand know what your right hand is doing. Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your kind deeds shall be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret shall himself reward you openly. And when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the congregations and on the corners of the streets to be seen by men. Truly I say to you, they have the reward. But when you pray, go into your room, and having shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret shall reward you openly. And when praying, do not keep on babbling like the Gentiles, for they think that they shall be heard for their many words. Therefore do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. This then is the way you should pray. Our Father, who is in the Shamayim, let your name be Kadash. Kadash be your name. Let your kingdom, your reign come, and let your desire, your will be done, on earth as it is in the Shamayim. Give us today our daily bread, your will and your word for our time, that's me. And forgive us our debts, our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us, our debtors. And do not lead us into trial. Let us not be led into temptation, trial, or destruction. But deliver us from the wicked one, the wicked schemes of the enemy. Because yours, Abba Yahuwah, is the reign, the kingdom, and the power, and the esteem, and the kabod, forever and ever. In YAHUSHA Mashiach, our donor, Alahim. Amen. For if you forgive men their trespasses, your Father of the Shamayim will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their trespasses, neither shall your Father forgive your trespasses. And when you fast, do not be sad-faced like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, so that they appear to be fasting to men. Truly I say to you, they have the reward. But you, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, and that you do not appear to men to be fasting, but to your Father who is in the secret place. And your Father who sees you in secret shall reward you openly. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on the earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay for yourselves treasures in the Shamayim, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart shall be also. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is tube, all your body shall be enlightened. Real quick, do you understand? I had a revelation what this means. But lay for yourself treasures in the Shamayim, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart shall be also. I just got another understanding of that right now. Is like, where your treasure is, there your heart is also. In other words, like, it'll have your heart. You know what I'm saying? Where your treasure is, like, it'll show, because that's where your heart is. And so it's like, that's why it says, don't lay up treasures here on earth. Don't give anything on earth your heart. Don't treasure anything in your heart. Because if you give it your heart, and, it's destroyed and taken and stolen, it's just gonna, like, break your heart and, hurt you. It's just gonna let you down. There's no hope in that. But if you have your heart, your treasure stored up in the Shamayim, your heart is only given to the Shamayim, the eternal kingdom, then you're basically like, take whatever you want. You can kill me, you can hurt me, you can do whatever, but you'll never truly hurt me and destroy me, because you can't take away from me the expectation that I have, the inheritance we have, the Shamayim, and that's where our heart is. That's only like truly the only thing that matters the most to us. So it's like, don't lay up your treasures, don't put your heart in anything in this earth, where moth and all these things, thieves steal, and they rust and get destroyed, they get burnt up, rust destroys it, moths eat it up, thieves steal it. But put your heart in the Shamayim, let that be your treasure, and it can never be taken away. I love it. For where your treasure is, there your heart shall be also. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is tube, all your body shall be enlightened. But if your eye is evil, all your body shall be darkened. If then the light that is within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one is able to serve two masters, for either he shall hate this one and love the other, or else he shall cling to the one and despise the other. You are not able to serve Elohim and wealth. Because of this, I say to you, do not worry about your chai, what you shall eat or drink, or about your body, what you shall put on. Is not chai more than the food, and the body more than the clothing? Look at the birds of the Shamayim, for they neither sow nor reap, nor gather into storehouses, yet your Father of the Shamayim feeds them, and are you not worth more than they? And which of you by worrying is able to add one pikas to his chai span? So why do you worry about clothing? Note well the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And I say to you that even Shalomah in all his esteem was not dressed like one of these. But if Elohim so clothe the grass of the field, which exists today and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace, how much more you, O you of little belief and trust and obedience? Do not worry then, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For all these the Gentiles seek for, and your Father of the Shamayim knows that you need all things. But seek first the reign, the kingdom of Elohim, and his righteousness, and all these shall be added to you. What is it talking about in context that will be added to you? It was talking about the necessities. I just picked that up. Everybody likes to quote this, like, seek Yahuwah, seek Elohim and all his righteousness, And we just quote that like out of thin air. And all these things, we think Lamborghinis and cars and wealth will be added to us. No. This verse is talking about the bare necessities. Because it just got done saying, do not worry about what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear. Just seek first the kingdom and all his righteousness. And all these things, all the necessities, making sure you got some food and clothes and shelter will be taken care of, will be added unto you. That's it. It's not, you seek Yahuwah in the kingdom and he's going to make you rich. No, seek Yahuwah in his kingdom and he'll make sure to take care of you. He's going to supply the bare necessities for you. Literally is the context of the scripture. Right? It says, because of this I say to you, do not worry about your high, what you shall eat or drink, about your body, what you shall put on. Is high not more than the food and the body? Wait a minute. Is not high more than the food and the body more than the clothing? Right? Do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For all these the Gentiles seek for, and your Father, the Shamayim, knows that you need them all. Need all these. Need what all these? Food and clothing. But seek first the reign, the kingdom of Elohim, and all his righteousness, and all these, food and clothing shall be added unto you. He got you. Do not then worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow shall have its own worries. Each day has enough evil of itself. Like, this is talking about living like a very bare minimum, day by day. What are you going to eat for the day? What are you going to wear for the day? Where are you going to shower? Even if the Yahuwah calls you to such a narrow walk that you're giving up everything and you don't know what you're going to eat the next day, as long as you're seeking him and his righteousness, it might lead you to that point. He got you. All them things, regardless, going to be added unto you. He's going to make sure you have those needs met miraculously day by day, bringing messengers, malakim, to take care of you and feed you and clothe you and transition you to point A to point B and to bring you to where you need to be to share the kingdom too, to do his work. Amen. Hallelujah. Do not then worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow shall have its own worries. Each day has enough evil of itself. Hallelujah. First Peter chapter 5. Yep. First Peter. First Caphar, chapter 5. Therefore, as a fellow elder and a witness of the sufferings of Mashiach, and also a sharer of the esteem that is to be revealed, I appeal to the elders among you. Shepherd the flock of Elohim, which is among you, serving as overseers, not by compulsion, but voluntarily, not out of greed for filthy gain, but eagerly, neither as being masters over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you shall receive the never-fading crown of esteem. In the same way, you younger ones, be subject to elders, and gird yourselves with humility toward one another. For Elohim resists the proud, but gives favor to the humble. Humble yourselves then under the mighty hand of Elohim, so that he exalts you in due time, casting all your worry upon him, for he is concerned about you. Be sober, watch, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Resist him, firm in the belief and the trust and obedience, knowing that the same hardships are experienced by your brotherhood in the world, and the Elohim of all favor, who called you out to his everlasting esteem by Mashiach YAHUSHA, after you have suffered a while, himself perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you. Perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you. To him be the esteem and the might forever and ever. Amen. Through Sila, the trustworthy brother, as I reckon, I have written to you briefly, encouraging and witnessing that this is the true favor, the compassion and favor of Elohim. In this stand fast. She who is in Babal, chose together with you, greets you. Also my bond, Marcos, greet one another with the kiss of love, of Ahava. Shalom to all of you who are Mashiach Yahusha. Amen. And this concludes Yom chapter 9, Abraham, part 2, reading the whole Caphar in the 50th year of Yubal, 2022-2023, Natsarym audio version of the N.A.Y.Al, the Natsarym assembly of YAHUSHA Elohim. Shalom. Shalom and Mashpaka. Shalom in YAHUSHA Mashpaka. Shalom, shalom, Yashar Ch. Shalom, shalom, Mashpaka. Shalom, shalom. Love you. With that I pray, bid you farewell. May Abba Yahuwah favor you and increase you. May he guard you and protect you and strengthen you. Abba Yahuwah make his face shine upon you, be compassionate towards you, and show you favor. And Abba Yahuwah lift his countenance upon you and give you shalom and fill you with all the fruit of the Ruach. I pray and petition this by the power of the blood of the Lamb of the renewed covenant, and by the power and authority of King Yahusha Mashiach, our Adon, our Elohim, our King of Kings, and our Prince of Peace, and our Kuhan Gadol, and our Aish, forever and ever. Aman and Aman and Aman. Shalom, shalom, Yashar Ch. Shalom, shalom, Mashpaka. Shalom, shalom. Love you.